Welcome into this week's episode of NC Preps TV. I'm your host, Josh McKinnon, here with my co-host, Kevin Utz. And joining us this week is North Carolina Gridiron's Brian Barnes. Last week's NCPreps.com game of the week was McDowell at Roberson. Roberson defeated McDowell 36-20. Kevin, can you tell us a little about the game?
Roberson jumped up on McDowell early, Josh, 22-6 at halftime. The third quarter was a different story for McDowell as they closed in the lead 22-14 early, but Roberson was just too strong and really pulled away at the end to make it a 36-20 final. The dynamic duo of Noah Suber, quarterback, with 154 passing yards and a touchdown, along with 79 rushing yards and a touchdown, and Malik Griffin with his 106 yards and a touchdown. They combined for 339 yards, which was out of 388 total for the entire Roberson offense. That duo really dominated the game. McDowell, Malik O'Neal rushed for 177 yards and a touchdown on 21 carries, and he tried to keep McDowell offense in the game, but Roberson was just too much for the night.
Brian, I know you had a chance to get out to Douglas Byrd on Friday night to see them play host to Grays Creek. Can you tell us a little about that game?
Yes, Grays Creek won 42-15, and I was really impressed with how dominating Grays Creek rushing game was. They had 389 yards total on the ground. Ken McDowell for Grays Creek led them with 181 yards, followed by Justice Richardson with 116 yards.
I know you also got a chance to get out to Southwest Onslow on Monday night following the rainout this past Friday, but they played host to East Columbus. Can you tell us a little about that game?
Yeah, this game was it was a very fun game to watch. It's probably one of the best games I've seen all year. East Columbus was manhandling Southwest Onslow for most of the game. It wasn't until the very end that Southwest Onslow could pull it out with 2 touchdowns in the final 3 minutes and 22 seconds to pull out the win over East Columbus 20-24.
Was there any player in that game that caught your eye?
Actually, it was the QB for Southwest Onslow, Percy. He had 2 rushing touchdowns and 1 punt return for a touchdown, a 69-yard punt return. On the ground, he had 80 yards for a grand total of 104 yards for total offense.
Wow. Kevin, you had a chance to get out to Central Cabarrus on Friday night and check out your alma maters. They played host to Hickory Ridge. Can you tell us a little about that game?
Yeah, I went out there to watch new coach for Central Cabarrus, Donnie Kiefer. When Central started out with their best start since 1994, but Hickory Ridge didn't care about that. They went up early, 33-14. Then in the third quarter, they still held that lead, but Central came fighting back. They cut it down to 33-26 with only a few minutes remaining when John McNair intercepted Hickory Ridge quarterback's Nick Tyson's pass and returned it to the end zone, only to be called back on a block in the back. Central did retain the ball, though, and was able to drive downfield all the way into about the 12-yard line when it was 4th and 8. With the clock running and 38 seconds left and no timeouts, confusion on the Central sideline resulted in a spike when they thought it was 3rd down, and Coach Kiefer took complete blame for that. But he's really turned the program around this year, and it's really showing on the field, and Central looks like a pretty solid team this year, to be honest. But Hickory Ridge was just too much for him Friday night.
Kevin, what do you think could be credited to the fact that Central Cabarrus has changed their program basically around and did a complete 180 when they really weren't a factor at all in that conference, and now they're kind of one of the top dogs?
Well, Coach Kiefer has done this everywhere he's been. He's just a winner, and I attribute it to him. He's just an educator. He's a teacher. He really, when you go to practice and watch him, he really teaches the players. They're a student under him, and he really explains everything they need to do. And he just brings a very diverse offense with a lot of motion, a lot of jet sweeps, a lot of counters, a lot of reverses. It's just a very fun offense to watch play, actually.
Kevin, I saw where Central Cabarrus, even though they lost last week, has jumped up to an honorable mention in this week's NCPreps.com poll. Is this team for real, or is this team just kind of just trundling up to at the top right now until they get to really in the heart of the conference?
Well, that's hard to say. Central's really struggled in conference over the last few years, but this is definitely a different team from the last few years. I mean, Their offense shows that they deserve some credit, but I don't know if they can really handle some of the big boys in the conference like Concord and Kannapolis. But we'll find out this week when Central travels to Kannapolis.
Yeah, that'll definitely be a good game. Well, let's get into our players of the week last week in the state. Kevin, I'll start in the 1A. Jamaz Richardson of Lejeune. Richardson ran 22 times for 338 yards with 5 touchdowns in a 41-15 win over Rosewood. He will be the recipient of a VTO plaque, and they will get to the school and see him, I'm sure. Kevin, do you want to do 2A?
2A player of the week was Sean Williams of St. Paul's. Williams carried for 255 yards with 3 touchdowns in a 42-22 win over Harold's Christian Academy.
In 3A from Statesville was Tristan Mumford. The quarterback completed 19 of 36 passes for 250 yards and 4 touchdowns in a big win in one of our games of the week, 39-20 over West Rowan.
For 4A, we have Chris Francis of Hillside. Francis ran 28 times for 301 yards, 3 touchdowns, picking up the win 18-13 over Southern Durham.
That Hillside team is very talented. In private school, Christian Jukes of Christ School in Raleigh. Jukes completed 7 of 11 passes for 234 yards with 4 touchdowns in a 47-0 win over Rayburn Gap. That's in Georgia. Well, folks, we'll be right back after this quick break with a special guest, Tyquan Lewis of Tarboro High School. Tyquan has got a huge decision coming up tomorrow at 4 o'clock at Tarboro High School. He'll be making his college decision. He'll join us right after this. We're joined on the NC Preps TV hotline by Rivals 4-star defensive end Tyquan Lewis. Tyquan, it's great to have you in. Talk a little bit about the season so far and how you guys are off to another great start. You guys, have you been playing any offense this year?
Yes, sir.
Tight end?
Yes, sir.
You guys have obviously off to another great start. Last year, you guys lost what some considered as, well, he was our top player in the state, Todd Gurley, and now he's off to a tremendous start down at Georgia. But you guys seem to just continue to reload every single season. Can you talk a little bit about the program and the coaching staff and kind of what helps y'all have continued success in 2A?
Well, first it all started with our dedication, because as soon as the state championship game was over, we started playing and Coach Connell told us to remember the feeling, and that's the place we want to be at next year. So after that, we just wanted to just get back in the weight room, start all over again, reconstruct, and then Coach Connell just, he preached, and he just say, you eat what you sow, and you all just work hard, and everybody just put in and dedicate, and that's how we get back to where we are each season.
Well, a lot of people out there know Tyquan Lewis as just another great defensive end, another great player out of Tarboro, but what they don't know is tell us a little bit about what you do other than football. What's some of your hobbies?
Mainly it's just hanging with my little brothers and, just having fun with them and taking them to school and things. Then I like to hang out with my friends every now and then. Other than that, I just sit back and just laugh. It was just a great person. I like to hang out with my grandma and go fishing and things.
Now, do you have anything as far as a major lined up, or do you have a favorite subject in school?
It's probably science.
Any type of science, just social science, or?
Probably like environmental science.
Yeah. Well, as far as I know, you obviously have got a very big day planned tomorrow, and coming down to make your decision. And I'm sure whatever school gets your allegiance is going to be very lucky. And I know you're going to be a great ambassador for that program. But you've narrowed it down to 3: USC, Ohio State, and LSU. 3 great schools. Can you talk a little bit about each school and what makes you like those schools?
Well, first it's like, well, USC is like they're just rebuilding. And they came in with new coaches. Coach Dora, he's a good dude and he's very enthusiastic. I mean, he just brings this program a new height. And then they recruit me hard and he's like always interested in what I'm doing on and off the field and like checking on my brothers and things. And then you have Ohio State. They're a top-notch program, and they do great with the things they do. Urban Meyer, he's a great coach, and Coach Rabel and all the other coaches around them. I mean, this is a great program. And then you have LSU, and you have Les Miles as the head coach, and Coach Davis, and Coach Greg Haley, the defensive line coach. And this is great coaches, and I believe all 3 schools have great coaches. And then the way I feel at all those schools, well, I haven't been to LSU yet, but the way I feel at Ohio State and UNC, I just felt comfortable between those 2. But hopefully I'll take official to LSU one day or something.
Well, you're listed at how much do you weigh now? 225, 230?
I weigh 234 right now.
Wow, so you're bulking up a little bit. And I know a lot of people see your weight to go with that size and they're like, man, that seems more like an outside linebacker or somebody that could stand up. But I've been in the weight room down there when I first came down to see Todd, and you're pretty strong for that 235, right?
Yeah. I mean, usually I probably clean like 330 or something like that. And I don't know, I just keep going and going.
Has those schools told you they want you to play on the defensive line, or have they talk about moving you around maybe a hybrid position or playing outside linebacker?
Just at the hybrid position, because that way I can rush and then drop back.
Yeah, I mean, you're definitely a gifted athlete to be able to do that. What about as far as LSU goes? Obviously, they've got a great defense, but those colors are awfully similar to Tarboro. Could that play a factor in anything?
Maybe. I mean, pretty much good. I mean, some people say you don't have to change colors and things like that. I mean, not really. I mean, colors don't really matter.
What about Todd? Can you talk a little about him? Have you talked to him recently? I know he's off to a tremendous start in college, and seeing guys like that, how they shine in their first year on campus, has got to be a great thing for you, getting ready to, not only end your senior year, but getting ready to move on and play Division I football next year yourself.
He's off to a great start. He's an amazing athlete, amazing person. I mean, I talk to him almost every week. He shares good little texts for the team things, and then he'll tell me about college experiences and how things are there on and off the field, and then he'll tell me things enjoy your high school moments, and when you get to college, just be prepared to get ready to go and just go every day, just nonstop, just keep going over and over.
Well, Tyquan, I really do appreciate you letting us take a little bit of your time, but I'm going to let you get some sleep tonight because you've got a great decision to make tomorrow, and best of luck to you as always, and I hope to get down and see you play soon. Thank you. Welcome back to NC Preps TV. I'm Josh McKinnon here with my co-host Kevin Utz and joined by North Carolina Gridiron's Brian Barnes. This week's NCPreps.com Game of the Week, as well as the North Carolina Gridiron Game of the Week, is East Forsyth at Ragsdale. Brian, I know that's y'all's Game of the Week. Can you talk about either one of those teams? I'm not sure if you've had a chance to see either one play this year or not.
No, I haven't. But we have something on our website called the Fair Rankings, and it has a strength of schedule, and it has East Forsyth as having this toughest strength of schedule so far this year in the state. So it'll be interesting to see how strong they really are.
Yeah, I know, Kevin, you had a chance to get down and see him play Mount Tabor earlier this year and had some good things to say about him.
Yeah, I really did. That's a game they really dominated, and they've really dominated every game all season. Their closest score has been 31-10. It's an interesting fact for you to say they have the toughest schedule because they haven't had a close game yet. I'm really curious if Ragsdale and them are a close game in the end, how they'll react not having a close game all season so far.
Yeah, Brian, just out of curiosity, what do you guys, for the strength of schedule, how do you determine that?
Well, it's a mathematical formula, and it really does. It looks at the who the team plays and who their opponents play and who their opponents play. And I know up until last week, every one of East Forsyth's opponents, their only loss came against East Forsyth. So they're obviously doing pretty well.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they're doing really well. I mean, that's a pretty interesting thing, though. That's very interesting.
Yeah, and they're actually to start the controversy, they're actually ranked number one in the 4A in our fair rankings
Wow. Over Butler?
over Butler, over everybody.
Wow. Butler's always talking about being disrespected. I think you're throwing it out there, Brian.
Yeah, I know.
Well,
But
let's
I did see
go ahead,
I
Kevin.
did see East Forsyth play earlier this year, and their defense is really well led by Jalen Forrest, and they're committed to running the ball, and they really do well with Garrison Duncan leading that offense and a triple option, read option, jet sweep type offense, and it should be a great game against Ragsdale this week.
Yeah, Ragsdale is we've talked a lot about East Forsyth, and I'm sure if Vegas was going to put a line on a high school game, I'm sure East Forsyth would be the favorite here. But Ragsdale's definitely got some athletes. I mean, they had a good win on the road early this year at Dudley. They beat the defending state champion Page, which Page is off to a little bit of a rocky start. But they're led by quarterback Colson Herndon, and he's had a pretty good year so far, just being a game manager for him. Marquez Elsner, it leads him on the ground. He's got 4 touchdowns this year, and he's rushed for just about 500 yards. He's averaging about 100 yards a game. They're fortunate enough to have Xavier Jones, one of the fastest athletes in the state. He pretty much plays on both sides of the ball for him. On defense, that defense is kind of where is their bread and butter. That defensive line gets after the quarterback very well. They're led on the defensive line by Brian Nukalua. If I messed that name up, I apologize, Brian. But so far this season, he's got 8 sacks, and they're also led by linebacker Duncan Sparks, who's got 2 interceptions to go along with 41 tackles. So they've got athletes, and that's going to be a tough environment to go get a win for sure. But East Forsyth has done it this year many times. They went to Mount Tabor earlier this year and did it.
Well, Ragsdale also has some history on their side. The last 3 matchups, they've beat East Forsyth in all 3 games.
Wow, that is a very interesting stat, Kevin. I know you're going to have a chance to go as well as Brian, so hopefully we can talk next week about a pretty good game. As far as our other games of the week, we'll move on to talk about Southside and Manio. I'm going to have to go with Manio there. What about you guys?
I also took Manio in that game.
Brian?
Yeah, I'm going to have to go with Manio.
Well, there you go. We all great minds think alike. As we move on to talk about our next game, AC Reynolds at Asheville. I'm going to go with Asheville there in a close game. What do you guys think?
Well, I'm sticking with you here. I'm going with Asheville as well, also in a close one.
Well, I have to disagree. I'm going to go with AC Reynolds.
Well, yeah, I think it'll be a close game, but I'm just in a close game. I just always go with a home team. But In our
If I'm not mistaken, didn't a 1A program come to Asheville and beat them earlier this year?
Hendersonville did earlier this season. You're gonna call us out on that one, and I picked Hendersonville in that game too.
but Hendersonville is a very, very well coached team and a very good program though.
Oh, yes.
In our next game, East Alamance goes on the road to play TJ Logan and the Nighthawks of Northern Guilford. I'm going to have to go with Northern Guilford there.
Well, Josh, I'm gonna stick with you, and I'm going with the name that you always hear you saying, TJ Logan, and Northern Guilford's gonna win this game.
Yeah, Northern Guilford should have this one in the bag.
Yeah, I don't know. I just feel like everybody's kind of always doesn't have Northern Guilford at the top of their polls, or just thinks like, oh, it's Northern Guilford, and I don't understand. But this Northern Guilford team is really good, and I've seen them play this year, and I know Brian has as well. And I mean, what's your opinion, Brian? Do you think they're the real deal?
Oh, yes. Yeah, Northern Guilford and TJ Logan, they're the real deal. They're going to be up there going for another state title this year.
I agree. And our last game is Forest View at Crest. What do you think, guys?
I went with Crest in this game, Josh.
Brian?
Yeah, I don't see Forest View winning this one. Crest.
I go with Crest there as well. I mean, it's hard to pick against Crest playing at home, that's for sure. Well, guys.
Well, we didn't get picks on that East Forsyth game for Game of the Week this week. I was going East Forsyth, by the way, on that. How about you, Brian?
East Forsyth, yes.
I'm going to take East Forsyth as well. I don't see them, Ragsdale, being able to play with that rushing attack and East Forsyth. I mean, the schedule, like Brian said, they've played a hard schedule already, and no games have even been close. Well, guys, I appreciate you joining me this week, and maybe we can do it again next week.
It's fun as always, Josh. Hope to have you back soon, Brian.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, remember, as always, you can follow us on Twitter at NC Preps, at Josh McKinnon, at Kevin Utz1, or you can follow Brian and his site on at NC Gridiron. And you can always follow us on ncpreps.com for your latest high school football coverage in the great state of North Carolina.